Hello.
Hello.
What are you talking about?
Nice voice. I talk about whatever the other person suggests usually.
Let's try talking about history.
Okay, but it'll probably be more of an educational activity on your part because, well, because what? What's the point of arguing about history? Everyone has their own sources and so on.
Are you interested in history or not?
Of course, absolutely.
What was the last history book you read besides a textbook or fiction? Perhaps we could start from there.
Well, I read something about an ancient Chinese war, I think, about 4 years ago.
You think?
Yes,
So you haven't read any history in a long time?
of course not.
But you said you're interested in history, yet not for 4 years.
Does that mean I read books or something?
All right, let me rephrase. What have you watched about history? What have you listened to about history?
Oh, I watched all of Maxim Katz's extensive analysis, his complete breakdown of the entirety of World War II.
Is Maxim Katz a professional historian?
No, but he does have this project. I believe it's titled 24 Hours or 48 Hours. So they take some historical event, and for the 48 hours leading up to it, they detail what was happening in the world each hour and which events influenced it.
So you would trust what Maxim Katz had to say, even knowing that he is not a historian?
Again, I didn't say I trust him.
So why watch him if he's not a historian?
Because I'm interested in history, and that's one of the sources I've watched. You asked what I watched, and I answered you.
I see. Thank you for the answer. I understand.
Uh,
And what about something more academic regarding history besides Maxim Katz?
that's why I said initially this would be more of an educational dialogue on your part if we engage.
And why do you trust that I'm a historian?
I read technical literature, and that's all I do. It truly takes up a significant portion of my time, so
Let's approach it. Let's approach it from a different angle. Which country did you choose to talk to?
the country I chose to talk to was Ukraine.
Perhaps it would be better if you explained why you chose Ukraine. What are your interests? That's likely far more engaging.
The arguments of the people who are sitting here. Interestingly, I set myself an experiment 4 years ago to find a truly worthy interlocutor who wouldn't interrupt, who would understand when they're mistaken about something, and when I'm also mistaken about something, I'd have the opportunity to admit it. I still haven't found such an interlocutor.
I sympathize with that. Do you have any particular question you wanted to ask Ukrainians?
Yes, I have a question. Why are you tearing down monuments of Russian poets? I'm not asking out of patriotism, I'm just curious what tearing down a piece of metal on the street accomplishes.
Allow me to explain. There exists a historical concept known as the commemoration of historical memory.
Okay,
Each and every state participates in the commemoration of historical memory. The commemoration of historical memory of both the Soviet and Russian imperial eras was managed by the Soviet authorities. Prior to that, it was the responsibility of the Russian imperial authorities.
right.
So, why is this being done? It's what you'd call a marker indicating that this is our territory. It doesn't matter which Russian poet the monument is dedicated to. If it's not on Russian territory, it simply doesn't matter. It could have been Pushkin, Nekrasov, or perhaps another figure from imperial times. This is specifically carried out to demonstrate to the populace that this is our territory.
Uh,
After the Soviet Union disintegrated and these monuments were left within our territory, virtually no one touched them. These monuments just remained as they were. After you started, well, not you personally, but rather your country initiated a full-scale invasion of Ukraine then.
hey,
These monuments cannot stand on our territory because, from your point of view, by doing so, you have designated this territory as Russian, as part of Russia, and so on. If there hadn't been a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, all those monuments of Pushkin, Lermontov, and your other cultural figures would still be standing on our territory, and hardly anyone would have paid them much attention or worshipped them.
right.
And they weren't removed. Folks were quite neutral about them, as before 2022. Well, in my hometown, the city where I was born, there was a small park with a bust, a chest-high sculpture, I don't remember the Russian word for it, of Lermontov.
Mhm.
And it just so happens that the architect who designed this square was a relative of mine. He was an architect. He had already passed away a long time ago, dying during the collapse of the Soviet Union, and no one really paid any mind to that Lermontov. It didn't matter if Lermontov was there or not. Those who admired Lermontov's poetry might have brought flowers to his monument on a specific day, but no one really paid much attention to it. This is a direct consequence of your country's unprovoked aggression against Ukraine. In this way, we are getting rid of these reference points that indicate to us that this territory either belonged to the former Russian Empire or was part of the former Soviet Union. Each and every phenomenon has its own causal relationships, its own chain of cause and effect. The removal of monuments, initially the Soviet ones and subsequently the imperial ones, is the result of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation.
Well, in other words, it's just some kind of national resentment for the fact that we...
This isn't called. You can refer to it however you choose. I've explained to you what this is from an academic point of view. You probably haven't even heard a phrase like the commemoration of historical memory before.
I haven't.
I've explained it to you. If you hadn't attacked, they wouldn't be removed. A re-evaluation of the imperial past is underway. If you've been following the news, some Latin American nations have taken down statues of Christopher Columbus, despite the fact that, well, so many centuries have already gone by. A re-evaluation is currently taking place. These nations have come to understand that the discovery of America, as it was known in Europe, brought not only certain positive aspects to local traditions, but also a tremendous amount of negativity. And it's necessary to get rid of imperial reference points. If the Spanish, Portuguese, or Italians wish to erect a monument to Christopher Columbus in their own countries, they are perfectly entitled to do so. This is because he was either Genoese or sailed under the Portuguese flag, or was funded by the Spanish crown. Thus, these nations are free to establish such monuments. This is called commemoration of memory and the re-evaluation of one's own imperial past. We are re-evaluating. Had you not attacked, this process of re-evaluation might not have taken place. Perhaps it also was under the influence of global trends, because this is a global trend, not only ours. You also had monuments torn down in your territory, but for some reason, you forget about that and don't ask about it.
Actually, that was precisely my next question, because I'm seeing how, in reality, at the very minimum, I see a monument to Lesia Ukrainka, a monument to Taras Shevchenko at the Kiev railway station, the Hotel Ukraine.
Yes, they still stand.
Moscow is packed with these monuments and no one is taking them down. What's more,
well, because
if I go out and try to paint over something and so on, I'll be immediately arrested for vandalism.
There's a simple explanation for this. Ukraine did not initiate an attack on Russia. If Ukraine had attacked Russia, you would have witnessed the very same trend of demolishing Ukrainian monuments. This is, first and foremost, the primary point. That's the first thing. And secondly, the quantity of Pushkin monuments in Ukraine cannot be compared to the number of Shevchenko monuments, for example, in Russia. If you are able to count these monuments by the tens here in our country, we would count them by the hundreds, if not potentially by the thousands. Well, we didn't erect these monuments for the sake of commemoration or to demonstrate that this territory belongs to Ukraine. That would be completely absurd. However, you did erect them, meaning the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union, which you haven't yet clarified whether it was a successor or not. You did it with the specific goal of demonstrating that this territory belonged either to the Russian Empire.
I get the general idea. Yes, I understand. I have a follow-up question. This process of re-evaluation...
Hold on, I have a question for you then.
Oh, okay, fine.
For instance, numerous Soviet cities in your country have been renamed to post-Soviet, and then in some cases reverted from post-Soviet back to Soviet. Do such occurrences not concern you at all?
No, not at all. I'm 27, I live here, my wife is here.
I have another question, if you don't mind.
No.
So, this trend, or a similar one in your country, doesn't concern you. Yet, for some reason, it deeply concerns you in a neighboring country.
It doesn't disturb me, it doesn't agitate me in the slightest.
Interesting, okay. Look, you're not interested.
You have expertise in history. I decided to ask you. And you are because you're foolish. You can explain it to me. I like hearing you speak. My questions don't mean I'm troubled.
No, I'm simply curious. I heard your answer. Thank you very much.
For example, it's just like the question, hypothetically, which I wasn't planning to ask, but let's say, I heard in the show The Sopranos when they started teaching about Christopher Columbus to the Italians, and the Italians turned against him because, oh no, wait, it was the other way around, they were for him. And the Native Americans were against them teaching about Christopher Columbus because he supposedly poisoned everyone's drinks and wiped out a huge number of the population. Is that true?
That's foolishness, of course, but Europeans did introduce, for example, the syphilis virus. Europeans brought horses and so on, which were not native to the Americas.
And technologies at the same time.
Definitely, of course, technologies too. But there's a concept of technologies and there's a concept of culture. And local cultures suffered greatly due to those technologies and also from those very cultures themselves. Many perished, though I can't immediately state the precise percentage of the local population. However, in some areas, up to 100% of the people died. And they perished specifically from viral diseases, against which the indigenous populations had no immunity. Therefore, I emphasize once more, a worldwide process of re-evaluating the colonial past is currently underway.
You know, I'd really like to ask my final question now. After that, feel free to ask me anything you wish, even if it goes beyond history and similar topics. And it's linked to this process of re-evaluation, of rethinking. So, again, from the standpoint of interest, I really don't grasp the entire process. Why do things happen this way or that? Why do certain cultural elements disappear, get destroyed, or get incorporated? It's all understandable. And based on that, here is my question. So, a German journalist in 24, sometime in the first part of the year, or perhaps the first half, arrives in Kiev. And consequently, he conducts interviews with people, especially young individuals who are out strolling around the city. He approaches a girl, one of many he talked to, just one of them, and so there's a monument standing there to Stepan Bandera and many others. She doesn't know who he is, but that's not the main issue. And when he asks, listen, right here you have a monument to Stepan Bandera, and by the same token, do you believe a monument to Adolf Hitler should be allowed to stand in Germany? The 22-year-old girl replies, yes, of course, absolutely. Is that also part of re-evaluation?
This stems from a lack of education on the part of this particular girl.
Oh no, a huge number of people said that. I can tell you about the video. I can tell you the author, a known German journalist with absolute European views, a complete hater of Russia.
What percentage does that represent of the total number of individuals he interviewed?
He travels to Ukraine. He's constantly reporting from there.
And so what? Let me ask again. Please, just a moment. Just wait, please. Just hear what my question is. What was the percentage of such responses, considering the total number of questions he posed and the number of people he interviewed?
It's impossible to count, but I think it's small. But then, what is the percentage ratio of the impact? The influence of a single Pushkin monument on cultural re-evaluation?
I have answered your question. This is the result of a poor understanding and inadequate knowledge of their own past. Now, concerning Pushkin, a monument dedicated to Pushkin does not in any way impact any particular person at this very moment. However, the system by which monuments to Pushkin are installed throughout the territory of Ukraine is a system of historical commemoration of Russian origin. We don't need this, we don't even. Once again, for the second time, as if you didn't grasp it the first time, just as deputies need to explain it to you in a second reading, that if there hadn't been a full-scale assault by the Russian Federation on Ukraine, these Pushkin monuments would have remained peacefully standing on their own. They would have been rotting away, or perhaps not, and someone would have been restoring them at their own or the municipality's expense and so on. This is a direct consequence of the Russian invasion. But you still want to... Can I finish what I'm saying or not? Why do you constantly interrupt me?
It's just that you first said that the result?
No, I asked why you interrupt. What's the purpose?
Then came the monument demolition. Now you took it back.
I asked you, why are you interrupting me? What's your goal?
You're twisting the facts.
What facts am I twisting? Please explain.
In the initial part of your explanation, you stated that the Russian invasion brought about a re-evaluation process, which in turn initiated what we now see as the monument demolition.
Not because of it, but as a result of it, you are formulating the sentence incorrectly.
And now you're saying that if Russia hadn't invaded, then
I told you that in the first part as well. Either, well, you have a bad memory, or perhaps I expressed myself unclearly. Let me clarify. Regarding these monuments, please don't interrupt me. You said you wanted a conversational partner, didn't you? You claimed you wanted a conversational partner who wouldn't interrupt you, yet here you are, doing the interrupting yourself. Let me attempt to explain to you for the third time that those monuments would have continued to remain standing. Perhaps with the passage of time, as our imperial past underwent re-evaluation, some of these monuments would have been taken down, while others might have remained. We just can't say. We are facing a situation where there's been a widespread monument demolition of Soviet and Russian monuments, which is a direct consequence of the Russian invasion. What exactly is it that you still don't understand?
I don't understand how you're omitting the fact that in Canada, an SS general is being honored. That's because most of the youth in Ukraine are currently...
Hold on a second, let's take this one step at a time. Where exactly are they honoring an SS general in Canada? Come on, you need to provide some evidence. Where?
In the center of Kiev, they just go and say...
Where are they parading an SS general in Canada? Young man, could you please refrain from rambling and instead focus on presenting the actual facts of the matter? Where in Canada? Where exactly was this SS general paraded? Tell me the facts.
In Canada, in 22, at the summit. It was broadcast worldwide. How do I prove it to you? Do I need to provide a video link or what?
First, please elaborate on what you're discussing, and then, if necessary, I will certainly ask for some evidence.
All right, for clarity's sake, let's not get confused with the wording. The SS, Canada. Here you go, October 5th, 2023.
Yeah.
In Canada, they apologized for presenting an award to former SS Galicia fighter. They brought him out, right out on...
An SS general. First of all, not a general. There were no generals in the SS.
Ex-SS fighter.
Oh, an ex-fighter was a general, then became... You should also try to be accurate in your statements. What's that now?
What difference does his rank make? He served in the SS.
It makes a big difference.
A difference? Oh, really, really?
Hold on a moment. We are currently discussing Ukrainian historical commemoration.
We are not Nazis.
Why do you keep interrupting me? You wanted an interruption-free conversation.
Well, this is how we're talking, yes.
No, you were looking for something.
We're not Nazis, but we are Nazis. But we will tear down the Pushkin monument. Funny, isn't it? Some re-evaluation that Russia doesn't have.
Could you please stop rattling on? All right, let's break this down by the facts, solely on the facts, and only the undeniable facts.
If you communicated with facts, you might be allowed to and appointed as.
The facts. Let's stick to the facts. So, some ex-SS fighter.
You are leaving out crucial and important events from this equation.
Please stop rattling on if you could just avoid rattling on.
You fixate on that.
Well, let's just... But I wasn't really fixated on the general. Let's talk about this particular point. I was not fixated on the general. I withdraw my question about the general. So, the ex-fighter from the SS Galicia division, what happened there?
What? They brought him out at a meeting.
Which one?
And presented him for an award.
What kind? An assembly, what award? A state award? A public one?
Yes, an award.
Okay.
The Order of Canada. They apologized for it. He was removed.
Excellent. What relevance does this hold to the historical commemoration of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union in contemporary Ukraine, where our discussion began? How is this pertinent?
It's directly related. The fact is, that meeting was held to discuss further aid and funding for Ukraine. Representatives from Ukraine were there. I don't know which ones specifically, but representatives.
And did they stop our aid after that?
No, they negotiated further.
Because we're Nazis.
I don't know why.
You don't know why? Because you attacked us.
A direct effect, of course.
Certainly. Let's talk about who was the aggressor here. Because I get the feeling that you...
No, we attacked you. And we're doing it because we have goals, we need to achieve them, and we are taking what we need, what we want. Right? Wrong? Moral? Immoral?
Oh, that's great. That's really excellent. I mean...
Can I just...
I will mute you. So, you're admitting you're a criminal who, without any reason... Where are we going? What is happening here? How do you like that, huh? You wanted so badly not to be interrupted. I was trying to do that with the very last bit of my strength. And he keeps blabbering and blabbering, this sort of trainee senior lieutenant. What is he exactly? What's Canada got to do with it? What about them awarding an SS general? Turns out he's no general, but an ex-fighter. He was awarded, then stripped. Canada's questions. How they love to jump in like that. Then we have some other Nazis walking around with swastikas. My God, how can they not see their own issues or just refuse to see them? When they don't see it, they don't want to. So what does that make him? An FSB agent, and his tongue just goes on and on like a broom. Even with my swiftness, I can't even manage to bring my little jar of holy water inside there.
Hello again to you all.
Hey.
How's your... I won't inquire about the conversation's topic, but before I just...
We're talking about history.
About history, yes, it was quite harsh. And kids. Everyone's swearing.
The conversation is going to be about history. Why are you telling me about some kids who swear at you? I have absolutely no interest in that.
And about history?
Yes. Anything, as long as you've read a book. What have you read about history, besides a textbook and fiction?
I have read the Jungle Book many times over.
Oh.
Kipling's Mowgli.
Kipling, that's wonderful. Only Kipling doesn't even have a book with that title. There's the Mowgli cartoon, which is based on different stories, but Kipling never wrote a single book called that. But that's not history. You don't want to talk history, do you? Just want to lecture me, right?
Of course, just one question. Where are you from?
I'm from Ukraine, from the Kiev region. Where are you from?
And I'm from Kuban, originally from Russia. A big country. Great country.
Are you going to tell me about the greatness of Russia? Go on, I'm listening.
Of course, you're the one talking about history.
I'm not here to lecture on history. I try to discuss history with people who are actually interested, but you're clearly not interested. So, what is it you want to tell me?
So, Uncle, listen, you're pretty much stuck in your own little moment right now. What I wanted to ask you about was the history of Kievan Rus'. Let's talk about that. What century or year was it actually established?
Kievan Rus' is merely a conventional designation for the East Slavic state that existed from the latter half of the 9th century up until the middle of the 13th century. Do you have any further questions?
Right, exactly. Who freed it from the Ottoman Empire, Kievan?
No one liberated Kievan Rus' from the Ottoman Empire, because the Ottoman Empire only emerged in the 14th century, while Kievan Rus' had already ceased to exist by the mid-13th century. If you would just correct the mistake in your question and rephrase it, then I will listen to what you have to say. The one thing I ask is for you lot to speak simultaneously with me. You've asked the question, and I'm providing the answer. While I'm talking, you're muttering something over there, and I can't hear you. Ask a proper question.
When Toktamish took...
Whom did Toktamish capture? Is Toktamish the Ottoman Empire?
No, he's Tatar Mongol.
You inquired about when Kievan Rus' was freed from the Ottoman Empire. I tried to explain to you that you have an issue with chronology. You just started yelling and then disconnected the call, and naturally that's what happened. Everyone's an expert on Kievan Rus', the Ottoman Empire, and its liberation from the Ottoman Empire.